In 1980, the inflation rate in the United States hit 13.5%. And in March of that year, interest rates rose to 20%. It was in this context that companies and consumers in the United States felt that their firms were losing ground against their Japanese competitors. In June of 1980, NBC television released an extremely influential documentary called If Japan Can, Why Can't We? I'd like to play some excerpts from that television documentary because I think it does a great job of capturing the mood of the time.
I now invite the representatives of the Emperor of Japan to sign the instrument of surrender at the places indicated.
What can we do to work smarter, not harder?
Japan needed to do this for survival.
This program is about the strongest, most productive economic force the world has ever known, the United States. We have been for a long time. There are reminders of that here in the Smithsonian's Museum of History and Technology. The question is not what we have been or are now, but what we will be. For the first time, our productivity is not increasing. Productivity is not some esoteric economic subject. It is how much we produce and how much it takes to produce it. The object is to make more for less. If you do, everyone benefits. For a while, no nation came close to the United States in computer technology. The Japanese, for instance, came to the field late, but they came well prepared. In a recent American study of one type of integrated circuit, the brains of a computer, the best American product failed 6 times more often than the best Japanese product. 6 times. Built-in quality and reliability pushed Japanese productivity up and American productivity down.
Well, let me tell you that productivity game was taught us by Americans. We are very fortunate to have America as a good teacher, and we always try to be a very good student, and that's what made it possible for us to be somewhat competitive in the international market with U.S. industries.
The first time that I went there to teach industry, I taught 450 engineers in several cities, Tokyo, Nagoya, and Fukuoka.
W. Edwards Deming first went to Japan in 1950 to teach industrial productivity through statistical analysis. He was so successful that Japan's annual award for productivity is called the Deming Prize. It is one of the most coveted awards in Japan, and the medal that goes with the award is a profile of Dr. Deming, an American. Dr. Deming, who is now 79, and his wife have lived for some years in this house in Washington. His office is in the basement, and Mrs. Deming is one of his assistants. He works constantly and has absolute faith that his system of statistical analysis helps industry. He was equally certain of it when he went to Japan to teach it there.
I think that I was the only man in 1950 that believed that the Japanese could invade the markets of the world and would within 4 years.
If the Japanese were impressed with Deming and his system of quality production through statistical analysis, and they were no more impressed with Deming than he was with them.
What I saw was a magnificent workforce, unsurpassed management, and the best statistical ability in the world. It seemed to me that those 3 forces could be put together, and I put them together so that Japanese quality, instead of being shoddy, became known within a few years. In less than 4 years, manufacturers all over the world were screaming for protection.
And of course, our major supplier of copy machines was a Japanese company. And so we saw the advantages of many things the Japanese companies were doing, and we'd heard about Dr. Deming, and so we got off and got underway with a quality program with Dr. Deming.
They realized that that the gains that you get by statistical methods are gains that you get without new machinery, without new people. Anybody can produce quality if he lowers his production rate. That is not what I'm talking about. Statistical thinking and statistical methods are to Japanese production workers, foremen, and all the way through the company, a second language.
And what we need is to have Dr. Deming help us learn what the Japanese so successfully have learned.
As part of his program, Dr. Deming teaches practical statistics so that everyone in the plant becomes part of the quality control effort, understanding what has to be done and how to go about doing it. Everyone can participate, everyone gets a say.
In statistical control, you have a reproducible product hour after hour, day after day, and see how comforting that is to management. They now know what they can produce. They know what their costs are going to be.
Many of these programs on statistics have died in American companies because they didn't get the top management support. Now, why top management does not believe that this is the way the Japanese have improved their industry over the last 30 years, I don't know.
I think that people here expect miracles. American management thinks that they can just copy from Japan, but they don't know what to copy.
Throughout our history, parents have expected their children to live better than they did, and that has always been true. We live better than did our parents, and they lived better than their parents. Unless we solve the problem of productivity, our children will be the first generation in the history of the United States to live worse than their parents. I'm Lloyd Dobbins, NBC News.
As a result of if Japan can, why can't we, Deming, Juran, and others were rediscovered. After years of being essentially in the wilderness, they were in demand. In 1984, Deming wrote a best-selling book called Out of the Crisis. And also in 1984, Motorola, one of those American companies, feeling that they were falling behind, launched a homegrown program they called Six Sigma. And it was based largely on the methods and tools of Juran and Deming, and going all the way back to the thinking of Walter Shewhart and Ronald Fisher and others. I'd like to play you excerpts from an interview Steve Jobs gave around 1990 on his use of Joseph Juran as a consultant at the firm he founded after he was booted out of Apple called Next Computing. And in it he describes his views on not only Dr. Juran, but also quality and American company competitiveness.
America's in a tough spot right now, I think. I think we've forgotten the basics. We're so prosperous for so long that we took too many things for granted, and we forgot how much work it took to actually build and sustain those basic things that were supporting our prosperity. Things like a great education system, things like great industry. And we are now faced with relearning those things, going back to the basics and relearning them. And that's why I think Dr. Juran is so valuable, because he is standing right on the basic heart of the matter of why we are being out-manufactured, why we are being outplanned by Japan. It is not excuse me, it is not because the Japanese are tricking us, it's not because the Japanese are better intellectually, it's because we are being outplanned, we are being out-strategized, we are being out-manufactured, and there is nothing that can't be fixed, but we're not going to fix it up here. We're going to fix it by getting back to the basics of what we need to do. It's funny, the group of people that do not use quality in their marketing are the Japanese. You never see them using quality in their marketing. It's only the American companies that do. And yet, if you ask people on the street which products have the best reputation for quality, they will tell you the Japanese products. Now, why is that? How could that be? The answer is because customers don't form their opinions on quality from marketing. They don't form their opinions on quality from who won the Deming Award or who won the Baldrige Award. They form their opinions on quality from their own experience with the products or the services. And so one can spend enormous amounts of money on quality. One can win every quality award there is, and yet if your products don't live up to it, customers will not keep that opinion for long in their minds. And so I think where we have to start is with our products and our services, not with our marketing department. And we need to get back to the basics and go improve our products and services. Now again, quality isn't just the product or the service, it's having the right product. You know, knowing where the market's going and having the most innovative products is just as much a part of quality as the quality of the construction of the product when you have it. And I think what we're seeing is the quality leaders of today have integrated that quality technology well beyond their manufacturing, now going well into their sales and marketing and out as far as they can to touch the customer, and trying to create super efficient processes back from the customer all the way through to the delivery of the end product, so that they can have the most innovative products, understand the customer needs fastest, et cetera, et cetera. In most companies, if you're new and you ask, you know, why is it done this way? The answer is because that's the way we do it here, or because that's the way it's always been done. And in my opinion, the largest contribution of much of this quality thinking is to approach these ways of doing things, these processes, scientifically, where there is a theory behind why we do them. There is a description of what we do, and most importantly, there is an opportunity to always question what we do. And this is a radically different approach to business processes than the traditional one, because it's always done this way. And that single shift is everything, in my opinion, because in that shift is a tremendous optimistic point of view about the people that work in a company. It says these people are very smart. They're not pawns. They're very smart. And if given the opportunity to change and improve, they will. They will improve the processes if there's a mechanism for it. And that optimistic humanism I find very appealing. And I think we have countless examples that it works.
What kind of things are you saying yes to here at Next as a result of Dr. Juran's teachings or exposure that you might never have said yes to before?
Well, I think your question actually capsulizes what's wrong. The whole philosophy behind these newer quality approaches is that people shouldn't have to ask management permission to do something that needs to be approved. Authority should be vested in the people doing the work to improve their own processes, to teach them how to measure them, to understand them, and to improve them. And they should not have to ask for permission to improve their processes. So I think a lot of the philosophy behind this quality stuff carries with it a flattening of the traditional hierarchical organization and a distribution of authority to the people who are best in the position to decide what should happen to improve these processes, the people doing the work themselves. And so the permission that's given because of this quality philosophy is the permission to not have to ask permission. I think that the great satisfaction that he got from Japan did not end in the 50s. I think he probably looks at Japan as something that he helped nurture along, and as every decade has passed, he sees his ideas blossoming even more. So I'm sure he gets tremendous satisfaction from having injected a very important ingredient into the early post-war culture of Japan, and he probably sees that in every branch and leaf of a fairly large tree. And I think what he's trying to do now is to make sure that he gets that into the into the future culture of American industry as it rebuilds itself. And I think if he is successful, which I think he is on the verge of being, that in his last breath he will feel comfortable knowing in the decades to come that his work will get recognition.
By coincidence, in 1990 as well, came a book that I believe for the first time, at least to a wide audience, described the Toyota production system. It was written by Jim Womack, Daniel Roos, and Daniel Jones, and was called The Machine That Changed the World, and was based on MIT's 5-year, 14-country study of the automotive sector. It was an enormously influential book with both business people and academics, as well as consultants. And 6 years later, in '96, Womack and Jones published a book called Lean Thinking, which I think was the first time, at least in wide use, that the term lean was used to describe the Toyota production system. Also around that same time, around 95 or 96, we saw the second generation of Six Sigma when Allied Signal and GE adopted it and modified it and greatly expanded upon it. Interestingly enough, a few years after that, we started to see the blending of lean thinking and some of these Six Sigma statistical tools into something that today is called Lean Six Sigma. Between 1980 and the year 2000, the thinking of people like Juran and Deming was rediscovered by the West. And the work of Walter Shewhart, Ronald Fisher, and others was widely adopted. Toyota went from a maker of good, small cars to the industry's leader, much emulated by many companies. And in 2009, GM, which was once the world's most successful and largest car company, had to file for bankruptcy. Deming, AG Toyota, Juran, they lived long enough to see how the Japan recovery would turn out, how Toyota would do, and how the Americans would respond. Deming died in 1993 at the age of 93. Eiji Toyota, who was president from 1963 to 81 and then chairman from 81 to 1994, he passed away in 2013 at the age of 100 years and 5 days. And Joseph Juran, he retired at the age of 90 in 1995, and he died in 2008 at the age of 103.